This is the podcast that we ask our guests from in front and behind the camera, how did they get their foot in the door? What was the key to unlocking their success? What's their story?
Our guest today comes from Hollywood royalty, but now she's making her own way as a writer-director. Her first film, Home Again, starring Reese Witherspoon, and now Goodrich, starring the legend that is Michael Keaton, and the always brilliant Mila Kunis. Our guest today is Hallie Meyer.
Billy, I'm sorry.
Just go. You go out every night.
Well, I have to go to work. Somebody has to support the generations of children who hate me.
Hello?
Andy,
Naomi? Where are you?
I've checked into rehab.
What?
I am staying here for 90 days.
Wait a minute. What?
I gotta go.
90 days?
You'll do great.
What's up, Dad?
Naomi's in rehab.
Seriously?
She's addicted to pills, and she's left me. You don't seem really surprised.
I don't know. I guess it's not like that big of a shocker.
Not a shocker?
Where's Mom?
Mom had to go back home for a little while to see Grandma. You know, she's getting older, so...
Grandma's the same age as you.
No, she's not. No, she's not. She's a good deal older than I am, but anyway.
And how's your day going? How's everything?
Oh, good. I'm anxious today.
Well, just to put you at ease, I love the movie.
Okay, thank you. That does put me at ease. Thank you.
I'm a huge fan of Michael Keaton as well, so anytime he has a film coming out, I'm always excited. But I was intrigued when I saw the trailer for this because I was like, oh, okay, I haven't seen Michael Keaton do something like this before. And
Yeah,
if I have at all, it would have been something of, in the 80s or 90s. And it feels like it's a throwback to some of his older films in a good way.
yeah.
And I loved his performance in this. It was incredible, really like heartbreaking, and just more emotional than I expected it to be. I don't know if it pulled on certain heartstrings that I connected to, but it just really, his performance really got me.
I'm
And
happy to hear that.
having written this script and obviously directed it, how did this all come about? What was the sort of inspiration for writing this?
So I had just finished my first film, Home Again, and I wrote this right after that. I kind of jumped right into it. I know a lot of people like to take some time off, and I do too, but for some reason, writing is kind of therapeutic to me. So it's not like I'm jumping into directing another movie. Like I like to kind of, it's almost like giving birth and then you're ready for your next child in some ways. It's that personal. So this had been a story that I'd been thinking about for a really long time and playing around with, and I just hadn't seen it on screen before, and it mirrored a lot of things in my own life. My father remarried after my parents divorced, and he had a second set of children when I was in college. And it was emotional and complicated for me and hard to process for a really long time. And I think as writers, that's sort of how we process things that happen in our lives sometimes, is through our writing. And I also just am a big Michael Keaton fan in general. And like you said, I hadn't seen him in something of this ilk in a really long time. And so, yeah, I just kind of started coming up with the idea for this guy, and it starts with a character for me.
Hmm. Well, as I say, it's a fantastic script, and once you've written something like that, and you're like, okay, I'm happy with this, how do you
Yeah.
then go about getting someone like Michael Keaton in your movie? How does that happen?
Well, I've said this a lot this past week, but I really pictured Michael the entire time. So I had my heart set on him in a really strong way, stronger than is probably healthy as a writer, because usually you don't want to get your heart set on an iconic actor who is selective about what they choose to do. But I knew his agent because I had worked with her on my previous movie too. She represented Michael Sheen and also Candice Bergen. So I had a little bit of a relationship with her, and I called her, and I sort of planted the seed a while before. I said, I'm writing something for Michael. Then I said, I'm ready to send it to Michael. And he responded pretty quickly and said yes. So
Amazing.
that was just a career high for sure.
Is someone like that, I guess, does someone like Michael, do they come first? Is that you cast someone like that and then sort of pepper people around him once you've secured someone like that?
Yeah, I think that's a really great way to go about it, especially for an independent film where you
Mm.
basically write the script, attach yourself if you're a writer director. That's my way into getting jobs as a director, is I just write the scripts and then I'm part of the deal. And yeah, so for me, he was the first stop. And generally, as I'm writing, I do like to picture actors. I think it's helpful in the process. And then, that's usually the first stop is you go get them. And if they say yes, it helps you get your film made.
Mm. Well, this movie really hit a lovely tone with, it's dramatic, it's emotional, but it's also funny. And sometimes that can be, you watch a movie and it's one of those things, but to kind of
Yeah.
grasp all of those things, was it, I mean, forgive me because I'm not, an experienced writer. I do try and write, but I'm not experienced. Um, with something like this, is a lot of that on the page, or when you've cast people and you're directing, does some of that come out, like some comedic moments and things like that? Does that come out when you're shooting, or is it all on the page?
Oh yeah, both. I mean, it starts on the page on this movie, and generally the way I like to work, we stick to the script.
Mm.
I'm not a big improv person, and I think especially because we made this movie in 25 days, I really wanted to stick to the plan as much as we
Mm.
could. However, when you cast comedy giants like Michael and Mila, who are so talented, they take it to the next level. So it wasn't so much in changing things around, but just merely being as talented in the field as they are, they made it leap off the page. So for sure, a lot of magic happens in the moment. But yeah, I would say most of what is reflected in the movie did start in the script and then just got better and better through their incredible performances. And sometimes you can get a huge laugh just from the way somebody's eyes move, and that's not something you could ever write.
Yeah. Michael Keaton is so good at those little moments, and Mila Kunis as well. But it's the little intricacies of his performance where, the little eye, and as you say, that's just, it adds to it.
He's just epic at eyebrow acting.
Yeah, he is. He's top notch.
Now for a quick break. We'll be back to the episode shortly.
Check out the Patreon at patreon.com/life and film. And don't forget to follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. If you enjoy this episode, please leave us a positive rating. Add us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok at Life and Film Pod. Essentially, please like and subscribe everything. It makes a huge difference. Thank you.
This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. Do you work in the film industry? Are you freelance? Or perhaps you have a 9 to 5? No matter what you do, mental health affects us all. I struggled early on in my career with the uncertainty of if and when I would ever work again, struggling to pay my bills, or simply with anxiety. Don't know about you, but being an actor, it's very important for me to maintain structure in the downtimes, and I found not only exercise, but talking to someone for me was a game changer. And so Life in Film has partnered with BetterHelp to provide you with access to the largest online therapy service in the world. And it can all be done from the comfort of your own home, from a phone, tablet or laptop. No commute, cutting down travel costs, and most importantly, it's affordable. With over 1,000 therapists in the UK, BetterHelp can provide access to mental health professionals with a wide variety of expertise in mental health. If you need someone to talk to and you're thinking of giving therapy a go, BetterHelp is a great option. And being a listener of the podcast, you get 10% off. That's 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/life and film. That's betterhelp.com/life and film. If you enjoyed this episode and want to support us, get early access and exclusive content and episodes, click to join our YouTube channel and become a member now.
And back to the show. My podcast is usually about how someone started their passion, how their career began, and how, getting into writing. And obviously your parents both in the industry, and I'm sure that must have influenced you. But what was where did that interest come from, and how did that all begin for you?
I think that it sort of began differently for me as a writer and a director. I've always wanted to be a writer. I've always known I wanted to write since a really young age. And if I wasn't writing film, I think I would be finding myself as a writer in another field. It's really where my passion lies. But I think once I started to be a little more educated in film and see the language of cinema, then the directing part of it really kicked in for me, because it's really an extra layer to the writing. So when I saw, and like you said, both of my parents are in the industry, so I really had the unique experience of somebody constantly pointing out beautiful writing and direction to me while I was growing up. So we would watch films, they would pause them and they would say, okay, do you see how the camera moved like this? And then, it was a 2-shot and now it's a single and then it's pushing in. Do you see how brilliant that is? So I'm grateful for that, because it explained the language that I think some people, I'll meet people all the time. They'll say, so what does a director really do? It's not like everybody understands what this job is. So I feel it uniquely positioned to have understood what it was and how it's the contributions to every inch of the storytelling and the fabric of the film. And for me, that is such a privilege to have that kind of total, um, you know, you can really make it feel like your vision. And that's such an incredible and unique thing. So that's why I think that films are so important and so powerful and so emotional. So that was something I was just always wanted to do. I can't imagine wanting to do anything else.
It was amazing as well because a lot of directors, you kind of glanced over it there, but like the fact that you've written these scripts and you're getting to put your own vision onto the screen is just, it must be such a nice, from start to finish. It's like you get to sort of open the book and then close it at the end. It must be very
Yeah,
satisfying.
for sure. And in independent film, it's even more your vision because when you're a filmmaker like me, I've only made one other movie. So if you go into the studio system, often there is not as much trust to younger filmmakers. And I think, which I understand, it's a lot of money, it's a lot of pressure, and you want to make sure that you are responsible with that. But it goes through a lot of drafts, a lot of channels, a lot of voices. And I think one of the great things about making an independent film is you really get to make the movie that you set out to make.
Mm. Yeah, no, of course. And you mentioned there your first movie, Home Again. How, I mean, the process that was like it seemed, well, to me, it seemed like a decent budget film. It's got obviously a great cast, Reese Witherspoon and many others. Being your first film, was that quite difficult to get that one off the ground? And then obviously with Goodrich, it's kind of a bit of a different ballgame because people have seen what you've done and you're proven, someone that can actually make a film and write it and put it together.
I actually found it harder to get this film made than that film, to be honest, because when you haven't made any films, people are like, what could they do? Maybe. And
Yeah,
then I think after you make a film, it becomes, it just, the climate became different in Hollywood.
right.
People, even in just that brief time, it was pre-pandemic and post-pandemic. So there was an
Cool.
enormous shift with streamers and people going to the theaters. And now it's, the theaters have suffered a huge blow post-pandemic. So for somebody who aims to have their film released in theaters, it actually became way harder. But I learned so much on that first movie, and Reese putting her faith in me really, really helped that movie get made. So, and I feel the same way about Michael and Mila on this movie. I'm so grateful to them for taking it's still, even on someone's second film, it's an enormous leap of faith. You're putting a huge trust in somebody.
Oh yeah, I mean it's an incredible cast. Both films have got great cast. It makes it look really easy. Like you've just made it look really easy. It's just great
By
cast
the
of
way,
both
neither
films.
either film had a really big budget. I mean, it wasn't a micro budget, but I
Mm,
mean, they were made very efficiently and
mm.
quickly, and not with
Oh,
large budgets. So I appreciate you thinking they feel that way,
no,
because
they
they
do.
were.
They've got not glossy's not the right word, but like they look like a proper movie. Sometimes with low budget stuff, you can see
Yeah,
corners have been cut or they haven't quite got the right camera or whatever it is. But both
yeah.
just look like, in a good way, mainstream, like
Oh,
Hollywood
great.
cinema movies. Um,
Yeah, I
and
appreciate that.
yeah, no, they look great. And I'd love to ask, in terms of, writing, directing, very different things. Obviously writing on your own in a dark room, maybe not as depressing as that, but you're writing something, and then
The room is not dark.
directing, you're in control of everything. It's a lot of pressure on your shoulders. As you
Yeah,
said before, that writing is kind of your first love. But
it is.
would you do you like when it comes to the process, are they both equally enjoyable? I mean, they are so different.
Yeah, I would say on set, the lows are lower and the highs are higher than with writing.
Yeah.
The the pressure is on in a way. When you're writing a script, there's nobody saying, well, this, you can't shoot this and this isn't going to work, and you can cast whoever you want in your head, and it's just you're in a bit of a dream, and I write by myself. So it can get lonely, which is nice when you're on set and you're surrounded by people. But then on set, there's a lot of external factors, a lot of stresses, a lot that you can't control, of course. So there's moments that are very intense, but I would say the highs on a set are higher than anything because, on certain days on this movie, just like I wrote that big scene where Mila's character really unleashes on her dad, Michael, with all these pent up feelings she's been feeling for a long time. And it was really gratifying to write that scene. I felt it was cathartic for me, and it was just a day where I felt good about the work I'd done. But when I got to the set and I got to see Mila do it and do it so beautifully and bring so much care and thought to it, that was like, that's an enormous high that you
Mm.
can't ever get alone in a room.
That must be quite emotional.
It was.
Yeah.
Yes, I cried. Yeah.
It's I don't know what it is, but it got me the moment. Well, actually, I don't want to give it away actually, because anyone who's listening to that hasn't seen it. There's a moment in the hospital with
Well, I
Michael.
want to know now. You can give it away.
I can say it. I can cut around it, but no, the moment in the hospital where Michael Keaton's just watching. It's giving me goosebumps now, but watching the husband with his daughter, and
Yeah.
and obviously without. I'll probably put some of this in, but the baby and everything else. And Michael
Yeah.
Keaton's reaction to that really got me. I was just like, um,
Yeah.
yeah, it was, yeah, a really beautiful played out moment.
Thank you for saying that. And something that's interesting about that scene in particular is a lot of that. Michael's performance was so amazing, and Danny DeFerrari, who played Pete, was terrific. But
Mm,
what was interesting about that is a lot of the, how we wanted to construct that scene happened in the editing room as well. Not the performances, they did that, but I mean, how often we would cut to Michael or how much we wanted to be on the couple who was in the delivery room,
mm,
so that was an interesting balance. And sometimes I thought, I kind of went back and forth, like, well, this should be their moment. But then every time I would watch Michael's take, it would kill me because he breaks your heart in that moment. So then I
mm,
thought, more Michael, more Michael.
mm,
And striking that balance was a really interesting and exciting day in the editing room, or a couple days, or however long we did it, to kind of figure out how much we wanted to bring him into that and when to cut to him.
Yeah, no, it's a really beautiful moment. Unfortunately, we're pretty much out of time, but I wanted to ask, you have a few acting credits early on, obviously little tiny parts, but in Parent Trap and
Yeah.
Father of the Bride. Did you have any kind of temptation to have a little cameo in this one?
No, I do not have the acting bug, and I never have. My parents put me in their movies as a little Easter egg and just kind of a good luck charm, and also just a way that I could cut school and hang out with my parents. But
Fair
no, I
enough.
was never interested in being in front of the camera. I belong behind it, very
Fair
far
enough.
behind it.
Very far behind.
Most embarrassing moments, yeah.
I mean, I definitely embarrass myself on set. I'm trying to think if there was specifically. I often get caught in I mean, this is, very slapsticky, but I often get my headset. I forget that I forget that I'm connected to it, and I head right over to the actors. So I was often just yanked back to my director's chair because I just would get really lost in the moment. So everybody saw me constantly tripping and falling over, a big physical comedy on set with me as a
That's
director, I
brilliant.
guess.
You're like, Michael, and just like
Yeah, exactly. They're just falling right over. Yeah.
yeah.
Hard to give somebody after you've fallen on your way over to them. Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you so much for coming on here, Haley, and all the
Thank
best
you
with the
for having
film.
me.
And I'm looking forward to it coming out in the UK. I think it's actually I think it's November 1st here. I don't know if it's different in the States, but it's not too long until it comes out. So
I
I'm
did
looking.
not know that, so I'm glad to know
Well, I hope I'm
it.
right. Maybe double check that, but I'm pretty sure
I
it's
hope you're right too. That sounds like a good date.
okay,
All
cool.
right,
Well,
cool.
take
Thank you
care
so
anyway,
much.
and all the best.
Okay, thanks. Nice to meet you.
Thanks.
In the end, there are really only three things that matter: how much you've loved, how gently you've lived, and how gracefully you let go of the things that really weren't even meant for you.
I want you to channel a word that describes what you need. We're all going to shout our words at the same time.
Help!
I was gonna count to 3.
If you enjoyed this episode and want to support us, get early access and exclusive content and episodes, click to join our YouTube channel and become a member now. Thank you to Halle, thank you to Brigade Marketing and 42 West. As always, thank you to our sponsor, BetterHelp.